And honestly, most people are surprised that the only thing standing between you and your 10x credit limit increase is one quick 5-minute phone call and maybe one tap of a button. So we all know that Capital One is notorious for being super stingy with their credit limit increases, but I found just a few things out recently that you could be doing to get that credit limit increase and bypass all the normal systems that most people do. So I made a video about 8 months ago talking about 5 steps that you could be doing right now to increase your credit limit, specifically on your Capital One Quicksilver cards, but it actually did extend to all Capital One cards as a whole. And since that video, I've seen hundreds of people comment on that video stating how the advice actually worked, and they were actually able to increase their credit limit tenfold. Like Valentin here, going all the way from a $400 credit limit on his Platinum card to product changing and upgrading to a Quicksilver, and now he has a $10,000 limit. And Miss Ninjitsu, who actually used my advice and went from getting denied to approved all within the span of 3 to 6 months. And who could forget our favorite person on YouTube, you know him, Patrick Alcatraz. Great comment, buddy. Let's see if he comes to this one too. But despite all those successes, there are actually 3 different things that I didn't mention in that video that I've learned since then, and I think it's going to exponentially grow your guys' credit limits for the future. So let's put on our +5. Again, 8 months later, it still gets me. So let's put on our +5 glasses of perception, and let's talk about this. So number 1, while it seems obvious on the surface, it's actually a little bit more of a nuanced topic, but number 1 is use your credit card. I know, it seems crazy. Like, of course I'm using my credit card. I have it, but there's a lot of people that are not using enough of their credit card. Let me explain. So I guess in the credit card community, a lot of us only advocate to use about 10% of your total credit limit at a given time because this is advantageous and beneficial towards your credit score, right? Well, in the world of banks and credit limit increases, this is actually a bad thing. A bad thing? Well, think about it. If the bank actually looks at your spending every single month and they see that you're only spending $100 on a 10K limit, why on earth would they give you a credit limit increase? You're already not using the limit that they gave you. But if you have a limit of maybe $1,000 and you start using $800 to $900 every single month and you're really stretching that thin, they can then in turn realize, oh, this person really needs credit, so this way we can keep giving him more money, so this way he keeps spending on the card, you follow? Now, of course, we all want to stay out of debt, so I don't recommend anybody who is in severe credit card debt to even request a credit limit increase because, well, you're more than likely to use it. And I get it, we might have some other credit cards that might give us more value by using it at different places, but just for the next 3 months, only use the credit card that you want to get a credit limit increase on. Like, for example, my Capital One Quicksilver card has a limit of $1,500, and I was always denied a credit limit increase. But what I'm going to do now is for the next 3 months, I'm going to use this card exclusively. And this way, in the next 3 months, they're going to see that I really need credit, and then they're going to give it to me in the next 3 months. So stay tuned for that video as well. So what I would suggest is just take all those credit cards that you're normally spending money on and just put it all on this credit card for the next 3 months. Trust me, you'll thank me later. You also want to be a lot more active. Start using this credit card a lot more often. In fact, this is something that hurt me just 8 months ago. You could look back to that video and how I was denied my credit limit increase. And what was the reason? Inactivity. In fact, I was so inactive using that credit card over the last few years that they were actually going to close my credit card in just a month from now if I just didn't end up putting any money on that card whatsoever, so I bought a pack of gum yesterday. Can we stop? Can we just stop for a moment? I need to finish this video. And honestly, if I just followed this step alone, I probably would have got approved for a credit limit increase, but unfortunately, I didn't follow my own advice. But I did do something else that actually allowed me to bypass that whole system and still make me eligible for a high credit limit increase, and I'll show you how you can too in just a second. But with spending more on the card leads me to number 2. That's right, it's paying on time. I know it seems like the most obvious one of all. Of course, I'm using my credit card, I'm going to be paying on time, but I can't tell you the countless people I talk to almost every single day that don't pay on time, they don't schedule payments, they're usually late and they have to pay late fees, and it's a big problem. And that's the biggest reason why they keep getting denied for their credit limit increases. I recommend the 1st and the 15th to pay off your bill in full every single month. Choosing these 2 dates is really good for 2 things. One is you never miss a payment, so this way that's not going to disallow you to getting a credit limit increase, right? And number 2 is, along with credit limit increases, they're actually checking your credit score as well. Say you got this credit card with a $1,000 limit and your score has subsequently dropped in the time that you've gotten it, that just disallows you more and more to actually getting approved for a credit limit increase. So credit score does matter, and what paying on the 1st and the 15th does does is to the banks, it shows a lower balance between those days and more often. So in those days that it actually calculates your credit score, it's going to show as your utilization is 0, which we know is about 15% of your credit score. And since that is low and you are paying off more often, it's going to show your credit score reflected much higher during those times. And during those times, the banks are going to show a positive increase to your credit score, which essentially means, hey, let's request a credit limit increase because our score just went up. Which again, just improves the likelihood that you get approved for your next credit limit increase. Number 3, now this is the one you really want to pay attention to. Now I've seen some people do it, I'm doing this now. It's something that actually is going to allow you to get to the pearly gates to get that credit limit increase. So really follow along for this one. So the ever revered bucket. Now for those of you who are unfamiliar with what the bucket is, I did a demonstration many months ago. I'm going to do it again because I thought it was okay. Basically what you have to do is imagine that this hole right here in this paper towel roll is your bucket. Now you can see that it is pretty small, right? And you can barely just fit your credit card in there, right? Now for a ton of people who just get their first credit cards with Capital One like I did, you're going to have a bucket that looks similar to this. And this is essentially your credit profile that was locked at the time of inception. So your income, your credit score, and your relationship with Capital One. But as time goes on, we evolve, right? And we actually increase our credit score, we increase our income, we establish our relationship. But Capital One, unfortunately, doesn't evolve with us, and that leads us to do some separate things to get around that. One, just to make sure that you're actually in this bucket, is just to test it. So we can do it together right now. Just go on the Capital One app, go to Profile, go to Account, go to Request Credit Limit Increase. So put in all of your general information and really make sure to update your income if it has increased since you got this card. Quick pro tip is actually when you're going to apply for a credit limit increase, a lot of people who work jobs like real estate agents or they work on Fiverr, freelancers, they actually get paid on a 1099, but don't put self-employed on your application. This is a signal to the banks that you're maybe a little bit more risky. So what I would suggest is get employed, say it's employed, but by that company. So if I'm a real estate agent, I'm going to put my brokerage. And if I'm a freelancer who works on Fiverr, I'm just going to say I'm employed by Fiverr. Okay, back to your scheduled programming. And then you're going to slide to request a credit limit increase, to which almost immediately they're going to say you were approved or you were denied and the reasons why you were denied. Now, if you get a credit limit increase right then and there, then you can click off the video. Nice job. I'm glad I helped you out just slightly. But if that didn't work and they said you're denied, well, you're bucketed. So now how do we actually get out of the bucket and turn our bucket way larger? Now, albeit a little bit weird, but consider if you can get out of this bucket and now you're inside a much larger bucket that can expand and grow with you over time. That's exactly what you can do with this next method I'm about to show you, which is, now the first one that a lot of people do is actually just apply for a new card altogether. And why a lot of people do this is a lot of people don't realize that the Capital One Quicksilver card actually has 4 different tiers. Now each one of those technically has an inherent bucket kind of built into them. For a lot of us getting our first credit cards, we're getting the lowest tiered Quicksilver credit card, but what if you applied for the highest tier? That's right, you could have more than one of these same type credit cards. So what I see a lot of people do is actually apply for that highest tier Quicksilver credit card. This one that actually requires excellent credit, so make sure your credit score is like 720 or higher. And they actually will have a starting out credit limit of about $5,000 to even $10,000 on the high end with this specific credit card. Now you're really cooking, because if you do get that first credit limit of $5,000 to $10,000, your credit limit increases will also kind of move in congruency. So instead of getting $100, $200 limits, now you're getting $1,000 to maybe $5,000 credit limits at a time every time you ask for it. And what I actually suggest is using Capital One's pre-approval tools, so you know it's a definite that if you use the pre-approval tool and you are pre-approved, that you are definitely going to get that credit card, and you're just going to take that hit to your credit score, as opposed to just not knowing and then getting denied of that credit card and then taking a hit to your credit score needlessly. So that's one way you can kind of circumvent the whole bucket system, right? Now the second way, which is one that I just personally did, which was product swapping and or product changing. Product swapping just essentially means that you're just taking a like for a like credit card. So if you happen to have like that Capital One Quicksilver 1 credit card that I know a lot of people do that has a $49 annual fee, I'm sorry. You can product swap that to a no annual fee Quicksilver credit card, hopefully a higher tier. In this way, you now create a new bucket for yourself with new income, new relationship, etc. And then you start that process of using the card, requesting a credit limit increase. But just know that when you do get this new credit card, you typically want to wait about 3 months or 90 days before you request your first credit limit increase. Since when you do product swap or product change, you will keep the current credit profile, so the limit will be the same. But now at least you have the potential of growing for the future. Now, number 2 is product changing / upgrading. Something I just did recently. I used to have an original Capital One Platinum credit card. It was my first card. It was secured. And now I have since few years later, have asked for a product change, they've actually allowed me to upgrade my Capital One Platinum card to a higher tiered Quicksilver credit card that should have a much higher bucket for the future. But another thing you could possibly do is if you are actively using this credit card, you could easily product change this Quicksilver card to a Capital One Save card. Now this is where you really start cooking, because not only are you getting $0 annual fee in a bigger bucket, but you're also getting a credit card that gives you a ton of bonuses and cash back for grocery spend, etc, etc. So all around, just a much better scenario, and you never have to actually hurt your credit by applying for a new credit card. And honestly, it was seriously that easy. Right before I recorded this video in this car, I actually requested a upgrade, and all they did was ask me, which card do you want? Let's see if you have an offer. Okay, great, you had an offer. And then they said, okay, great, your card will be in the mail in 1 week.
So that has been successfully upgraded. You will receive a new card within 7 to 10 days, sir.
And I forgot to mention that along with product changing comes a whole new bucket, right? Because it's a whole new card that you're getting. So a whole new profile, which means you have the potential of getting a new credit limit increase. And seriously, guys, if you really want to get a credit limit increase, like you really want to, rewatch this video again, follow those 3 steps, and honestly, there's no reason why you shouldn't get a credit limit increase for the future. And if you want to be like those people at the beginning that got their credit limit increases and take that advice, and if you want to see a little bit more details on the application process, then watch this video next. I'm sure you're going to get a ton of value from it.